Welcome back to Full Spectrum Frontiers. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and today we're going to talk about something that's happening right under our noses. It's subtle, quiet, and polite. Very un-American in that way. But make no mistake, it's powerful. It's disruptive. And it may just be the most peaceful revolution we've ever seen. Now, before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you find value in these conversations, if you've ever nodded along, raised an eyebrow, or muttered, "Damn, I never thought of it like that," hit that follow button. Share the episode with a friend who still thinks the world works like it did in 2005. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. It helps push this show up in the ranks and gets it in front of folks who need to hear it. Have you noticed? People are leaving. Not their homes, not their families. Well, some maybe. But mostly they're leaving systems. They're walking away from legacy institutions. Quietly. Without protest signs. Without hashtags. Just gone. I'm talking about the banks, the retailers, the media platforms. The idea that if you want to exist in society, you have to do it on their terms. Well, that idea is cracking. Instead, there's a growing movement of Americans who are doing something different. They're building what I call a parallel economy. Not as a backup plan, not as a protest, but as a replacement. You've got conservative-friendly financial platforms like Gab Pay popping up, marketplaces like Public Square where you don't have to filter your values through 10 layers of ESG buzzwords before you buy a tube of toothpaste. Entrepreneurs are no longer asking permission, they're just building. And that "Made in the USA" label, it's no longer just a nostalgic callback to World War II or something you find on a novelty mug at a truck stop. It's a strategic move. It's a statement. We don't trust your global supply chains, and we're done outsourcing not just our jobs, but our principles. This movement isn't happening in Times Square or on the front page of The Atlantic. It's happening in the back alleys of the internet, in Telegram groups, in garages, in homesteads, in small towns. It's under the radar, but it's gaining speed. And here's the kicker. This isn't about left versus right. It's not about red versus blue. It's about trust. And millions of people no longer trust the gatekeepers. They're opting out. Not with marches or megaphones, but with debit cards, with browser tabs, with supply chain decisions. If that's not a form of soft secession, I don't know what is. Now, before your mind jumps to Civil War 2.0 or some kind of Red Dawn fantasy, calm down. What we're seeing isn't kinetic, it's cultural, it's economic, and it's probably far more effective than anything involving muskets and powdered wigs. So today, we're breaking this down. In segment 1, we'll look at how consumer choices are quietly rewriting the rules of the economy. We'll explore why choosing a payment processor or an online store isn't just shopping anymore. It's signaling, it's strategy, it's survival. In segment 2, we'll dive into the entrepreneurs, the builders, the people creating new systems from scratch because they realize the old ones are too compromised to fix. And we'll talk about what makes these founders different. They're not just chasing profit, they're chasing principle. And in segment 3, we'll zoom out. We'll look at the bigger picture. How this decentralization, this cultural divergence, might be laying the groundwork for an entirely new kind of American future. Not a breakup, but a branching off. A new frontier in the full spectrum of conflict, not with bullets, but with bandwidth. So, grab your coffee, buckle up. Because whether you know it or not, you're already standing at the crossroads. The question is, do you stay on the well-worn path? Or do you follow the quiet revolutionaries building something better just off the map? Let's dig in. So let's start with a question. When's the last time you really thought about where your money sleeps at night? Not just where you spend it, but where it rests. because your dollars are never truly idle. They're always doing something. They're either working for you or working for people who don't share a shred of your values. That's not paranoia. That's modern economics. Now, this idea, voting with your wallet, isn't new. But something has shifted in the last few years. It's gone from support small business bumper stickers to a full-blown tactical withdrawal from legacy institutions. We've reached a point where buying toothpaste from the wrong company feels like subsidizing ideology you fundamentally disagree with, where keeping your savings in a major bank means indirectly funding ESG nonsense, DEI bureaucracies, or causes you'd never willingly donate to. And Americans? They're catching on. Quietly, enter platforms like GabPay, a payment processor built specifically for those tired of being deplatformed, debanked, or told how to think in order to spend. It's not just a payment alternative, it's a statement. It says, I don't want Visa or Chase or PayPal dictating what's acceptable speech. Or, look at Revere Payments, which explicitly positions itself as a pro-free speech, anti-woke financial tool. You might not agree with everything they stand for, but that's not the point. The point is that they stand for something, and that's rare currency these days. And the shift isn't just digital. Let's talk about Public Square, a liberty-based marketplace where businesses can list their goods and services without bending the knee to cultural gatekeepers. You can find everything from coffee to clothes, all from sellers who are just trying to run a business without being forced into social commentary. Now, you might say, so what? That's just capitalism doing its thing. And yeah, it is. But it's value-driven capitalism, which is a different beast altogether. See, traditional economics teaches us that people are rational actors who seek the best value at the lowest cost. But in 2025, the game has changed. Now, people are seeking alignment. They're looking at whether the company they buy from aligns with their worldview. We're not just comparing prices, we're comparing principles. It's why people are paying more for made in the USA products, not just for the quality, but for the assurance that they're not funding slave labor or propping up adversarial regimes. It's why some folks will drive an extra 15 miles to buy from a family-owned feed store instead of hitting the big box chain that flew a flag for every cause except the one they believe in. This is soft secession in action, but it's not loud, angry, or headline-grabbing. It's economic disengagement. It's a pressure valve for a culture on the brink. And it might just be the most American thing happening right now, but let's not romanticize it too much. There are real challenges here. For one, convenience still dominates. Amazon is fast, cheap, and frictionless. Trying to build an entirely new ecosystem outside of that, it's like going to war with a butter knife. The infrastructure just isn't there yet. Then there's the issue of reach. A lot of these alt-economy platforms are still in their infancy. They don't have Super Bowl ad money or VC-backed launch parties. They grow through word of mouth, digital back channels, and podcasts like this one. They live in the shadows, but they're gaining traction. And maybe most importantly, there's the risk of echo chambers. As we build these alternative systems, we've got to be careful not to isolate ourselves into ideological cul-de-sacs where we stop engaging with the rest of the country. Because while soft secession might be a way to preserve values, it should never be a way to forget that we share this country. The point isn't to live in a bubble. The point is to live with integrity and invite others to do the same. So where does that leave us? We're in a moment of quiet divergence, of people choosing platforms not just for what they do, but for what they represent. It's not enough anymore to be fast and cheap. Now, you've got to be honest. You've got to be aligned. You've got to mean something. And honestly, I think that's a good thing. Because when people stop tolerating hypocrisy, stop funding systems that insult them, and start building new ones, that's not division. That's innovation. That's pressure creating diamonds. The full spectrum of conflict doesn't always involve soldiers or sanctions. Sometimes it's about shopping carts and bank accounts. Sometimes it's about creating quiet leverage in a culture that forgot who it was serving. And right now, Americans are learning to build leverage again. Let's talk about the builders, the quiet revolutionaries, the men and women who looked around at the cultural landscape, saw the rot setting in, and said, "All right, we'll do it ourselves." Post-woke business isn't a tantrum. It's not a boycott. It's a blueprint. And the blueprint is simple. Make good stuff, tell the truth, and don't bend the knee to ideologies that mock your values. We're watching a new class of entrepreneurs emerge, not just founders, but reformers. They're not asking to change the rules of the old system. They're throwing the old rule book in the trash and writing their own. Take a company like Jeremy's Razors, launched by the folks over at the Daily Wire after Harry's Razors cut ties with them over political differences. You can like or dislike the guy's politics, but what matters here is the why. They didn't beg to be accepted back into the fold. They built a new table, new supply chain, new product, new message. Stop giving your money to people who hate you. That was their launch slogan. And that's a vibe, isn't it? Or, how about BRCC, Black Rifle Coffee Company? A veteran-owned business that walked a tightrope between appealing to conservative audiences and trying to stay out of the political crossfire. Say what you will about their balancing act, but they identified the need for a culturally resonant, high-quality product for people who didn't feel seen by Starbucks, and they delivered. Then you've got companies like Fieldcraft Survival and Nine Line Apparel and dozens of others who aren't just selling products, they're selling purpose. They're tapping into something deeper, resilience, heritage, values that transcend quarterly earnings and ESG scores. Here's what ties all these brands together. They're unapologetic. They're values first, and they're betting that enough people are done playing pretend. The post-woke business movement isn't just about pushing back against political correctness. It's about pulling the plug on cultural capture. It's about the founders who refuse to write hollow "we stand with insert trend here" posts every time the outrage industrial complex needs a dopamine hit. And here's what's really interesting. These entrepreneurs aren't just building products. They're building culture. They're curating language, imagery, aesthetics that reflect a worldview. They're telling stories that resonate with people who've been told for a decade that their beliefs are backward, hateful, or outdated. Now let's zoom out for a second. For a long time, the left understood the power of narrative. They took over Hollywood, publishing, academia, HR departments, you name it. They created the vibe, the story, the assumed moral high ground. And the right? It was slow to respond. It focused on policy papers and tax reform while losing the entire cultural war. But that's changing. What we're seeing now is a creative renaissance on the right, among independents, among folks who don't care for labels but sure as hell care about liberty. They're starting to understand the power of media, of design, of brand identity. This isn't about red hats and eagles anymore. This is about beautiful, functional, value-aligned alternatives. We're seeing the rise of influencers, creators, and micro-manufacturers who know how to build audiences, speak plainly, and serve people with shared beliefs. The old gatekeepers are losing their grip, and the crowd is beginning to reward authenticity over polish. And yes, this is still messy. It's trial and error. There are grifters in the space. There are copycats and clumsy startups who flame out fast. But that's okay. Every new frontier is a little rough at first. The important thing is momentum, and that momentum is creating a new kind of marketplace, one where businesses aren't just transactional, but relational, where the founder's worldview isn't a liability, it's a draw. Let me give you a hard truth, though. This movement isn't mainstream. Not yet. The dominant systems still have the money, the media, and the momentum of habit. Amazon isn't going anywhere. Nike's not panicking. The machine is still big. But if history teaches us anything, it's this. Empires don't fall all at once. They erode. They weaken at the edges. They lose the trust of the people they were supposed to serve. That's where we are. And into that breach step the builders, men and women who may never get invited to a TED Talk or land a write-up in Forbes, but who are laying the bricks of a new economy with every product they launch and every customer they serve. There's courage in that. There's risk. But there's also a sense of destiny. Because what we're doing here, what they're doing, is far more than e-commerce. It's cultural architecture. It's parallel nation building. It's what America has always done best. Create. So if you're listening to this and you're a founder, a maker, a dreamer with a product or service rooted in your values, keep going. You are needed. And if you're just someone who's tired of funding nonsense, I'll challenge you with this. Make the switch. Choose brands that reflect your worldview. Support the creators who take heat for standing tall. Be intentional. Because this isn't just an economic fight, it's a spiritual one. It's a fight for meaning, for identity, for integrity. And in that fight, the free market isn't just a system, it's a weapon. Let's zoom way out. We've talked about the consumers opting out. We've talked about the builders refusing to play by compromised rules. Now let's put it all together and talk about where this is heading. Because if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that centralization, whether in government, finance, tech, or media, has a fatal flaw. It assumes trust is permanent. Spoiler alert, it's not. And when that trust erodes, people start looking for exits. What we're witnessing right now is a mass decentralization, socially, economically, even spiritually. A realignment that feels less like rebellion and more like rerouting. Less like tearing something down and more like planting somewhere new. And it's not just fringe groups or doomsday preppers. It's mainstream folks, families, veterans, homesteaders, tech-savvy creators, disillusioned professionals. People who once played by the rules but now feel like the game is rigged. They're saying, no thanks. I'll grow my own food, host my own site, process my own payments, build my own community. This is the spirit of decentralization. It's resilience through independence. It's frontier thinking in a digital age. Think about it. Decentralized finance is rising because people no longer trust legacy banks. Decentralized media, like Substack, Rumble, and Locals, is rising because people don't trust the news. Decentralized commerce is rising because people don't trust Amazon, Target, or ESG-driven conglomerates. Even decentralized communities, digital tribes, local co-ops, intentional homesteads are rising because people feel disconnected from their neighbors and overgoverned by people they'll never meet. It's not that people want anarchy. It's that they want autonomy. They want control over what they consume, what they support, what they teach their kids, how they worship, how they live. That's not radical. That's human. And when central authorities keep failing, whether through censorship, corruption, or pure incompetence, this trend will only accelerate. Let me throw this out there. Decentralization isn't just a market reaction. It's an existential necessity. In a world this complex, this fragile, this politically unstable, you'd be crazy not to diversify how you live and who you rely on. You've heard of redundancy in national defense, right? multiple systems to back up core functions in case one fails. That's what decentralization is, but for society. Now, some folks hear all this and immediately think secession, civil war, national divorce, breakup of the states. Relax. That's not what I'm talking about. This isn't about drawing new borders or forming new governments, though some folks are certainly daydreaming about that. What we're talking about here is soft secession, the cultural, economic, and spiritual kind. It's Americans living under the same flag but using different apps, shopping from different supply chains, believing in entirely different moral frameworks. That sounds uncomfortable, but it's already happening, and pretending otherwise won't stop it. So the question isn't, how do we go back? It's, how do we move forward without breaking apart? And maybe, just maybe, decentralization is the answer. Not as an escape hatch, but as a stabilizer. Because here's the silver lining. Decentralization doesn't have to mean chaos. It can mean diversity of solutions. It can mean local resilience, stronger families, and tighter communities. When you decentralize, you don't eliminate order, you localize it. You make it more accountable, more flexible, more in touch with the actual people it serves. That's how you weather storms, cultural, financial, even kinetic ones. You don't put all your faith in a single institution or ideology. You build in layers. You build in redundancies. You create alternatives, backups, and fail-safes. It's the same principle behind special operations units, by the way. Decentralized command, empowered teams, initiative-based leadership. That mindset scales far beyond the battlefield. And I'll say this plainly, the people who embrace this now will be the ones who thrive later. Those who wait for permission, who cling to dying systems because it's comfortable, are in for a rude awakening. Because the old world isn't coming back. The legacy media is never going to apologize. The central banks aren't going to suddenly get it right. The global supply chain isn't going to make you feel safe again. But here's the good news. You don't need them to. You've got tools. You've got community. You've got the ability to build, to pivot, to plant your flag in soil you believe in. And that's what this episode is really about. Not division, not collapse. Adaptation. The full spectrum of conflict includes economic warfare, information warfare, and cultural disruption. And if you want to defend against it, you need to start thinking like a sovereign. Not in the legal sense, but in the mindset sense. What does that look like? It looks like buying local, sourcing your food with intent, learning a trade, teaching your kids real history, supporting brands that share your values, using tech that doesn't spy on you, and forming relationships with people who would have your back when things get weird. And things are going to get weird. That's a given. But weird doesn't mean hopeless. Weird means opportunity, creative space, the chance to do something different, smarter, freer. That's the American DNA. That's the new frontier. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably part of that wave. So, here we are, a world where people are building their own banks, their own stores, their own digital spaces. A world where entrepreneurship isn't just about innovation, it's about preservation of values, of liberty, of sanity. And no, it's not perfect. There are bugs, delays, janky user interfaces, orders that show up late. Some of these companies are held together with duct tape and prayer. But you know what? So was this country once. The founders didn't wait for ideal conditions. They didn't wait until everything was smooth and safe and profitable. They stepped out, defied the dominant powers of their day, and built something better. That same spirit is alive right now in servers, garages, basements, and barns. In every mom who decides to homeschool, in every vet who starts his own apparel line, in every rancher who says, "No thanks, I'll sell my beef direct." It's alive in you. The full spectrum of conflict isn't just out there, it's here, now, woven into our daily choices. And our response can't just be to complain or opt out. Our response has to be to build, to create, to take responsibility for the systems we use, the money we move, the voices we amplify. Because the future of this country isn't going to be decided by Washington. It's going to be shaped by the people who quietly decided they weren't waiting around for someone else to fix it. And look, if this resonated with you, if it challenged you or inspired you, share it. Don't just keep it in your podcast queue. Send it to a friend. Post it to a group chat. Bring it up at your next barbecue or at the feed store or the barbershop or wherever your circle meets. And if you've got a minute, drop a review. It helps get this show in front of more people who are thinking like you and I are thinking. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Full Spectrum Frontiers is about understanding every angle of the conflict we're in. From kinetic warfare to economic secession to spiritual resilience. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for the future. One episode at a time, one builder at a time, one wallet, one app, one act of sovereignty at a time. So keep building, keep questioning, and keep stepping into the frontier, fully armed with truth, grit, and vision. I'm Bennett Tanton. This was Full Spectrum Frontiers. See you on the next one.
In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just you, me, and the odds. We stuck together, we two peas in a pod. You dealt a bad hand, I'm there seizing the cards. We'll never be separated till we see in the gods. We've been low together, high forever. Long as we go together, we'll die, we'll never be a light. Couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never. And when the world gets a little too hard, wipe your eyes, put away your sorrow. When it's war, I'll be leading the charge, and I'll be still fighting for you tomorrow. Yeah, even with a blindfold or in different time zones, could find my way to you with my eyes closed. There's nothing between us. Go to Mars and Venus, stand in front of every one of them rocks they slinging and be a shield. Yeah.
In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah, let's go. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your shield. Let me be your shield, let me be your
You may be facing tribulation, but don't let it get you down. What I'm saying may take patience, but you're gonna make it out. I scorched my own 2 feet to pull you to safety. When the fires are burning